Hey everyone! Today, I want to share the story of the Franks, an ancient group of people who played a huge role in shaping Europe. The Franks were a Germanic tribe that lived near the lower Rhine River. Over time, during a period called the Migration Age, they moved into Gaul, which is modern-day France, and nearby areas. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, they became one of the strongest kingdoms in Europe. Their greatest leader, Charlemagne, helped shape medieval Europe, and left a legacy that lasted for centuries. The Frank story begins when the Roman Empire was still powerful. Back then, the Rhine River marked the border between Roman lands and the territories of Germanic tribes. On the Roman side, there were big cities and organized societies. On the other side, the Romans saw the Germanic people as wild and warlike. For a long time, Roman soldiers kept these tribes away, but when Roman power began to weaken during the 3rd century, groups like the Franks started moving into Roman lands. The Franks first appeared in historical records around the 3rd century. At that time, they weren't one single group but a collection of tribes. These tribes would join forces when needed, either to defend themselves or to attack. They called themselves Franks, which originally meant the fierce, or the brave. Later the name came to mean the free, a definition the Franks liked better. Among their many tribes, the Salians and Ripuarians eventually became the most important. There are a lot of stories about where the Franks came from. A historian named Gregory of Tours, who lived in the 6th century, said the Franks came from Pannonia, now modern-day Hungary, and later moved to the Rhineland and other places. Other stories, like those in the Chronicle of Fredegar, claim that the Franks were descendants of Trojans who escaped after the fall of Troy. These stories were probably made up to give the Franks an impressive history, similar to how the Romans claimed they were descendants of Trojans. Most historians today think the Franks were local to the Rhineland, and didn't migrate from far away. Before they became Christians, the Franks followed old Germanic pagan beliefs. They worshipped many gods and thought forests were sacred places. According to Gregory of Tours, they made idols from animals and offered sacrifices to them. While they shared some gods with other Germanic tribes, the Franks also had unique symbols, like the bull. For example, a legend says a sea creature called the Quinator, which had a bull's head, was the ancestor of a Frankish leader named Merovingian. Archaeologists even found a golden bull's head in the tomb of a Frankish king named Childeric IA. The Franks originally spoke a West Germanic language, but this changed as they settled in Roman lands and started mixing with local people. In northern areas like Belgium and the Netherlands, their language combined with Latin to form early versions of Old Dutch and Flemish. In southern areas like France, their presence influenced the development of Romance languages like Old French. These language differences, shaped by where the Franks lived, are still noticeable in Europe today. The Franks didn't have written laws at first. Instead, their laws were memorized by special speakers who recited them when needed. This changed during the rule of King Clovis I, who created a written law code called the Salic Law. Written in Latin, it covered things like inheritance and crime, and became the basis for later European laws. Another law code, the Ripuarian law, came later as the Ripuarians gained influence. The Franks started clashing with the Roman Empire in the 3rd century. Roman records from 289 CE mention them, but they were likely causing trouble even earlier. They raided Roman lands by land and sea, reaching as far as North Africa. To deal with them, Roman emperors launched military campaigns. Some Franks, like King Genibalds, surrendered, while others were defeated in battle. Over time, many Franks were captured and settled on Roman land. In exchange for land and protection, they agreed to fight for the Romans. Some Franks even rose to high ranks in the Roman army and government. As the Roman Empire's control over Gaul weakened, the Franks, especially the Salians, stepped in to fill the void. They offered the local people protection and stability, things the Romans could no longer provide. Under King Childeric I, the Salians became the most powerful Frankish group. When Childeric's son, Clovis I, took over, he united all the Frankish tribes. and in 486, Clovis began his conquest of Gaul by defeating Syagrius, the last Roman leader in the region, and capturing the city of Soissons. This gave Clovis a strong starting point for the Franks. Over time, he fought and defeated groups like the Alemanni, Burgundians, and Visigoths, which helped the Franks gain more land in Gaul and Aquitaine. Around 496, Clovis converted to Catholic Christianity, which was a big deal. It helped him gain support from the Roman Catholic Church, and separated the Franks from other kingdoms that followed a different form of Christianity called Arianism. Near the end of his reign, Clovis made sure to strengthen his control by getting rid of rival Frankish leaders, and uniting the tribes under one rule. By the time he died in 511, Clovis ruled almost all of Gaul, except for Burgundy, Provence, and Septimania. However, when he died, his kingdom was divided among his 4 sons, which created problems later on. At first, Clovis' sons worked together to build on their father's achievements. During the 530s, they conquered places like Burgundy, Provence, and Thuringia. They also fought in northern Spain and Italy, and expanded Frankish influence into Bavaria. They even made the Saxons pay them a yearly tribute. By this time, the Merovingian kingdom was one of the most powerful states to rise after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. But soon, fights and betrayals between Clovis' descendants began to undo these successes. One of Clovis' youngest sons, Clothari, stood out during this time of chaos. After years of rivalry with his brothers, including killing his nephews and even executing his own son, Clothar managed to reunite the Frankish kingdom under his rule in 558. But his reign was short, and he died in 561. Once again, the kingdom was split among his 4 sons, which eventually led to the formation of 3 main regions: Neustria, Austrasia, and Burgundy. These divisions caused more instability. A famous rivalry between Queen Brunhilde of Austrasia and Queen Fredegund of Neustria made things even worse. Their feud lasted for decades and dragged their kingdoms into wars and conspiracies. Finally, in 613, King Clothar II, Fredegund's son, defeated Brunhilde and united the Frankish kingdom again. To keep his power secure, Clothar II gave more rights to the Frankish nobles. The Edict of Paris in 614 made local elites stronger and reduced the king's power. It also made the role of mayor of the palace, a position like a prime minister, more important. By 617, these mayors were basically ruling their regions without much interference from the king. Clothar II's son, Dagobert I, was the last Merovingian king to have real authority. After his death, the kings became less powerful and were often called do-nothing kings, because the mayors of the palace were the ones actually in charge. This marked the beginning of the end for the Merovingian dynasty. Things changed in 687, when Austrasia defeated Neustria and Burgundy at the Battle of Tetri. This victory made the Pippinid family, also known as the Arnulfings, very influential. They had long served as mayors of the palace in Austrasia. Even though they had a lot of power, they still ruled through the Merovingian kings, who were seen as figureheads. But this changed with Charles Martel, a member of the Pippinid family who became mayor of the palace in 715. Charles Martel is best known for his victory over the Umayyad Caliphate at the Battle of Tours in 732. This win solidified his control over Francia. By the time the Merovingian king Theodoric IV died in 737, Charles didn't even bother installing a new king. The throne stayed empty until Charles' death in 741. While the Merovingians briefly returned, their power was gone. In 751, Charles' son, Pepin the Short, officially ended the Merovingian dynasty with the support of Pope Zachary. Pepin became king, starting the Carolingian dynasty. Under Pepin's son, Charlemagne, the Frankish kingdom reached its peak. Charlemagne expanded the empire through many military campaigns, doubling its size and adding regions like Saxony, Lombardy, and parts of Spain. In 800, Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor by the Pope, showing how the Franks had gone from being a group of tribes to a major force in medieval Europe. By the time Charlemagne died in 814, the Frankish kingdom had become a key part of Europe's history.